Thank you so much. Ruben, would you mind just putting this table on here for me? Thank you. So we're continuing our Growing in Prayer series. And so far, we thought about prayer and fasting, about making room for Jesus in our lives. We've talked about being persistent in prayer, thinking about watering and feeding our prayer life, even when we can't see anything happening. Last week, we spoke about lament. We talked about the importance of noticing and tending to the bits of the plant that aren't growing well. And this week, we're thinking about Thanksgiving. And I'd love to talk for a few minutes about training ourselves to notice and enjoy the beauty. You see, so often we can become too familiar with something around us. So I don't know if any of you have ever misplaced your favorite toy, or maybe lost your car keys or your phone. Things that become so familiar with us can often be the things that we really easily forget about. And so too, the same thing can happen with Thanksgiving. And so I'd love to talk about 3 things I think we can learn from this passage in Luke chapter 1. Which help us to think about how do we grow in practicing prayers of thanksgiving. So if you've got a Bible near you, then feel free to open it. We're in Luke chapter 1. We're looking at verses 46 to 55, if you want to have them open. So Thanksgiving is just the opportunity we take to notice and enjoy the beauty of something. And the first thing I think we learn from this passage in Luke chapter 1 is that Thanksgiving allows us to enjoy the moment. There are moments where we're going to feel thankful, where God has done something and we've been blown away by it. Thanksgiving allows us to celebrate and enjoy those moments, giving all the glory back to God. And in this song of praise that Mary is singing, she gives thanks to God while holding on to and remembering all that has happened to her in that moment. In verses 46 to 49, she says this, "My heart praises the Lord. My soul is glad because of God, my Savior, for he has remembered me, his lowly servant. From now on, all people will call me happy because of the great things the mighty God has done for me." Thanksgiving gives us the opportunity to not rush on from the moment, to rejoice and to celebrate in God's faithfulness, in his goodness, in his kindness. Flowers and fruits grown on a plant aren't there to look at from a distance. They're there to be enjoyed. They're there to be picked. I'm going to try and pick a few flowers this morning. I spent some of my Friday making these, and Vicky did suggest that if vicaring didn't work out, a party entertainer might be the next job for me. But flowers are there to be enjoyed. They're there to be picked. Psalm 34 verse 8 says, "Taste and see that the Lord is good." And so with enjoying the moment in mind, we've already heard some stories this morning from the Youth Weekend Away, but I'd love to just quickly invite Desi to come up and share her experience of the weekend away. So Desi, give her a round of applause as she comes to the front. I'm sure lots of you already know her. She often is singing in the band, but I've just asked her just to share her own experience of the weekend away.
Okay, so come to the mic. Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm Desi, and I have came to church for about 8 years, and I have listened to the talks, but it was only recently that I have actually understood what they meant. So when I was in my last year of kids group, I was totally ready to move to youth already. So when it came to actually going to youth, I didn't really ask questions, but I did share my thoughts. So when it came to the weekend away, I really took it as like a way to get to know Jesus a bit more, but I didn't really connect at the very start. But then on the last couple of services, I kind of felt like God was kind of trying to tell me that it was kind of time to move into his family and to actually get to know him. So yeah, the weekend away kind of just transformed me.
Amazing. And so we are so thankful for all that God is doing in the lives of our young people. Desi's story, Mel's story, Lily's story, they're just 3 of some of the young people that went away with us a couple of weekends ago. But God is doing stuff in our city. He's moving on our university campuses, in your workplaces, in your homes. And we love sharing stories where we get to celebrate and join in with giving God thanks for all that he's done, giving him the credit and the glory. Prayers of thanksgiving allow us to enjoy the beauty of the moment, either by ourselves or with others. But we get to give all the glory back to him and not hold it for ourselves. So Desi, seeing as you shared your story just now, I wondered if you could go and share these flowers, spread them out as far as you can, maybe one in each section. Just pick someone to pass them to. Just as a symbol of what it means when we give our own thanks to God, actually, it means others get to see it, notice it, and enjoy it as well. And so the second thing that we learn from Luke chapter 1 is that thanksgiving isn't about feeling thankful. It's about practicing thankfulness. In the passage, Mary is a really young woman, and she's found out she's pregnant outside of marriage. And I imagine that she probably feels quite vulnerable, perhaps confused and overwhelmed. And the reality of what lies ahead of her is huge. But if we read these verses and don't know that that's Mary's story, we might assume that she's in a moment of her life where everything is going really well, where it's straightforward and there's nothing complicated ahead of her. But I don't think that's what was going on for Mary. In a human sense, she had many things to wrestle with, to sort out, and to organize. Like, what does her relationship with the man that she loves look like now? She's going to become a mum. What does that mean? How does she care for a baby? And yet, despite her feelings, we know from this passage that thankfulness is what overflowed out of her. So how did that happen? Thanksgiving is something that we can practice. It's something that we can train our brains to do. When we learn a new skill, like learning to write or to walk or to play football, we practice it. We do the same thing over and over again so that we get better at it. And it forms neural pathways in our brain. So when you first learnt to walk, you put all your effort and energy into taking one step at a time. Now, I imagine most of you have walked from upstairs to downstairs without even thinking and considering how you'd walk. For those of you that have already learnt to drive or are learning to drive, when you first sit behind a wheel of a car, everything feels a little overwhelming. There are so many different things to consider and think about. And yet, for those of us that have been driving a while, we may well have driven to church this morning and we've sort of turned up and thought, oh my gosh, I don't think I've even processed that I took the journey. Because the more we practice something, the more we do it over and over again, the stronger those neural pathways become. But if we assume in our prayer life that thankfulness and praying prayers of thankfulness only happen when we feel like it, we miss the opportunity to grow and to practice it. Mary shows us that prayers of thanksgiving and songs of praise can be what overflow out of us, no matter what is going on around us. So if we think about thankfulness as the opportunity to notice and enjoy the beauty of the flowers or the fruits that a plant has grown, the wonderful thing is that the more we cut down and enjoy them, the more they will grow. In fact, if you don't cut them back and you don't enjoy them, then you miss out on the opportunity for that plant to produce more crop in the future. For those that received a balloon flower from Desi, can you just hold it up in the room for me? Now have a look around. Those flowers have now been spread out across the room. You see, the more that we practice thanksgiving in our prayer life, the easier it will become to notice the things that we want to be thankful for, and the more thankful we will become. Suddenly, we've gone from just one place in the room to now 5 places in the room where there are flowers. Because the more we practice being thankful, the more we'll recognize there's things to be thankful for. The third thing that we learn from Luke chapter 1 is about how to practice thanksgiving. Verses 50 to 55 show us that the practice of thanksgiving involves shifting our focus to look up and out rather than down and in. Mary thanks God for the works he's done across all generations, throughout history, and for people that are really different from her. If thanksgiving is about noticing and enjoying the flowers or the fruits of a plant, we don't dig around in the soil to try and find the flowers. I'm not going to find the flowers deep in here by getting out a spade and digging for them. I notice the flowers by looking up and out. sometimes in our prayer life, it can be easy to look down a microscope at things. And I've got one here. Apparently this was my mum's from school, and she said I had to be very careful with it. So please all note that I'm being very careful with it. But sometimes in our prayer life, we can get so zoned in on one particular problem that we look at it in great detail, but we become so absorbed with our own reality, our own thing, that we can forget to be thankful. But prayers of thanksgiving invite us to shift our attention to look up and to look out. And so prayers of thanksgiving help us to think about a God that is so much bigger and so much greater. And they remind us, when we pray prayers of thanksgiving, that when we look out, even though with our own eyes the thing looks so distant and so small, when we look through a telescope, suddenly we get to enjoy the beauty of it and how vast it is. Practicing prayers of thanksgiving involves shifting our prayer life from zooming in on the problems and the detail to taking our focus to shifting up and shifting out. And so I wonder, if you're just starting on your journey with practicing prayers of thanksgiving, what might it look like this week to maybe start and end your day with a prayer of thankfulness to God? You might even want to use those verses that we've read this morning from Luke chapter 1. You might want to use Mary's own words to help your prayers of thanksgiving. In our house, we say thank you, sorry, please, just before bedtime. And it just helps us to end our day remembering that there's so many things that we've enjoyed, and we want to take the opportunity to thank God for them. But if you've been practicing prayers of thanksgiving for a while, I wonder what it is that you could do this Lent to stretch yourself that little bit further. What might it look like to intentionally look through the telescope and see what else you can notice? What else is God doing that you can begin to thank him for? Growing in prayer through thanksgiving allows us the opportunity to notice and enjoy the beauty, to spot where God is at work, where he's answering our prayers. And the more we turn our attention to it, the more we'll notice what he's up to. Can I invite you